Ex-Typhoon Ewiniar heading for Alaska on today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for June 2nd. Well, we're very thin on the ground in terms of tropical activity, which means our headline is looking at a non-tropical cyclone, of course, Ex-Typhoon Ewiniar, heading towards the northwestern part of North America, Alaska, and the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia, Canada. Elsewhere, really, there is nothing going on in the tropics. It's day 2 of Atlantic hurricane season. We have no areas of interest here. A couple of disturbances, thunderstorms that are blowing up across the greater and near the lesser Antilles, but in general it's looking very quiet across the Atlantic. In the eastern Pacific, a few more storms blowing up, but only little ones, and certainly not tropical storm scales, just a few thunderstorms off the coast of Mexico and the rest of Central America, and quite a few more out over the open waters, but really nothing looking likely to develop. Now in the western Pacific we have a few little storms there as well over the Philippines and off towards Malaysia, over the southern part of the South China Sea, but in general also looking extremely quiet after those 2 storms that we had recently. Really no trace now of Malixi either. North Indian Ocean, there's a few storms blowing up across the coast of India and on the other side near Myanmar, which is expected to get a lot of rainfall over there, mainly from monsoonal rains. No areas of interest though, we're not expecting any of this to become a tropical cyclone. And in the southwest Indian Ocean, we are still holding on a 10% there for an area of interest, 94S, although it's looking vanishingly unlikely that we're going to see that become a tropical cyclone now. So let's take a look at what's left of Ewiniar. Its current location is 792 kilometers from Adak, 810 from Unalaska, 1602 from Kodiak, 2121 from Anchorage, and 2637 from Sitka further down the coast. All of those locations could get impacted with some gusty winds and rainfall locally reaching up to 50 millimeters or maybe a little bit higher, that's 2 inches. But certainly nothing out of the ordinary, it's just something that we're looking at because there really is nothing else today to look at. And that's the same for the satellite imagery. Well, here's some beautiful imagery of this extratropical cyclone, although it isn't that well looking. It's one of those that are more of a frontal system rather than a cyclonic system at this point. Ewiniar gave up the ghost of being a tropical cyclone a very long time ago now, when it was passing southern Japan. But here it is right now. Estimated winds around 45 miles per hour, pressure 989 millibars. We are expecting strengthening before it weakens as it reaches the coast of North America. There's a wider view of a little bit of a plume there of moisture, almost an atmospheric river there heading on towards the coast of the northern United States, contiguous United States, Washington up towards British Columbia and Vancouver area. Could be getting quite a lot of rainfall over the next 24 to 36 hours. And there's another view from COD imagery here showing all of that moving along there eastwards, with the bulkiest part of it in the middle there hanging down along that band. Well, this is Invest 94S, and it can't be doing very well if it's less important than an extratropical storm, and that's because it's really struggling, and it's almost done really. It's expected to die off within about 36 hours probably. It could be sooner though, the way it's looking right now. No sign of a circulation. Convection is extremely scattered and poor as well, and so it looks like the game is up for Invest 94S, and probably our last chance of another system there in that region. Is the Atlantic right now off the east coast of the United States. There's a nice looking little cyclonic thing there off the coast, extratropical of course, and a few disturbances moving through eastern Cuba and the Bahamas, moving off towards the northeast as well, quite similar to the earlier one that we had last week that had a chance of forming. And this is the coast off Africa there, not much going on, but you'll notice further north there it looks very glassy, that water. That's probably because it's extremely still in that particular area, maybe a high pressure center, I'm not sure. Well, this is the eastern Pacific, there is a disturbance over there. National Hurricane Center haven't given up on that. I think they're still going at 10% on it, but it is no sign showing up on anything that's going to form. That's an old picture of the Western Pacific there, but this is the North Indian Ocean, showing a lot of showers over that whole area there, all across the Bay of Bengal. We're really entering the monsoon period now, and you can see how that's affecting those locations, with thunderstorms blowing up in the evening further north as well. Well, sea surface temperatures are still increasing unabated in the Eastern Pacific, with temperatures over 30 degrees towards 32. Into the Gulf of California, a big chunk now of warm water entering that region, and it's getting very warm off the Bahamas and Cuba, with temperatures reaching 32 degrees there as well. Gulf of Mexico still doing a little bit of catching up, and off the coast of the United States, those temperatures are reaching 26 degrees off the coast of Georgia. Now this is the West Pacific, temperatures looking good here as well, and still increasing overall. A little bit of a cool spot from Ewiniar earlier. Maliksi hasn't really done that much in terms of cooling the temperatures down in the South China Sea either. And the Bay of Bengal, temperatures still looking toasty, 30 degrees plus in quite a few spots there as well, not quite as high as it was before Cyclone Rimal. And this is the Southwest Indian Ocean. You can see here as well quite a few areas of warm temperatures still near the equator, but in general they are cooling down. Like everywhere else in the southern hemisphere, those temperatures are gradually decreasing around Australia and in the South Pacific too, with interesting temperatures of 28 degrees Celsius still off a few spots off western and northern Australia. South Pacific temperatures still starting to decrease there as well, but still looking good for the northern part of Vanuatu and northern Fiji and of course Samoa. Well, sea surface anomalies look like this, and you can see it's still very warm in the Atlantic compared to average, and all of the cool spots are almost gone now actually. The Eastern Pacific still fighting against that significant cool pool there off the west coast of North America, and in the Western Pacific there's a few spots there of cool waters, but in general it is well above average elsewhere. Bay of Bengal still looking near or above average there too, and in the Arabian Sea a similar story. Oceanic heat content on the 1st of June looked like this. The Eastern Pacific still has a few little areas there rumbling up, and the Western Pacific's got a large area of extremely high oceanic heat content, which will certainly serve to rapidly intensify systems if they get good conditions over there. Similarly, in the Atlantic, a big area of red now bulking up to the west of Jamaica, up towards western Cuba and into the Gulf of Mexico, and also increasing area there south of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. So really getting up there now in the Atlantic. Well, let's check the computer models then, and first of all we're looking at Ex-Ewiniar as it moves on towards the east there and eventually straggles the coast of British Columbia and up towards Alaska again. So it passes by and then it does a little bit of a rebound there, moving northwest towards the end. Briefly, in the next 24 hours, it gets almost to hurricane equivalent status, or hurricane force winds, and then weakens substantially as it gets closer to land. So land areas probably will only receive 40 to 50 mile per hour winds and rainfall of up to 2 inches. Here's another little thing in the short range, the South Atlantic. It's not going to be a tropical or subtropical cyclone. It will stay extratropical, we think. But there it is, an interesting system moving along there, doing a little bit of a loop-the-loop, and then off towards the right, and then southeast as it gets swallowed up by another frontal system. There it is again, builds up quite a bit of intensity in a short amount of time before it gets amalgamated into a bigger low pressure system there. And just looking at rainfall over the next 7 days, we're not really looking at any area in particular, but we'll show you the areas that we've had a lot of rain recently around the South China Sea and the Bay of Bengal. And once again, you'll note there in western southern Myanmar and possibly into Thailand, very high amounts of rainfall from monsoonal rains there along the coast, as has been the case for quite some time. They must be getting an enormous amount of rain there over the last few weeks. They're expecting another 20 inches nearly in the next 7 days. That's 500 millimeters. Northern Bangladesh into northeastern India, 11 inches there as well. That area affected by Rimal, of course, that storm killing 55 by the way. And into the longer range then, we're looking at the Eastern Pacific, a very small system forming there in the Gulf of Tehuantepec and moving inland, and then possibly some of its energy contributing to a potential tropical cyclone off the western coast of Cuba there towards the end of that 10-day period. Now, this is a GFS model. We've not marked that system in the Eastern Pacific. It doesn't have good model support yet, and of course it only lasts a very short time, and then some of its energy might end up producing an Atlantic storm later on. We'll see. Big question mark over that. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can check out all of our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. Are still waiting for Hone t-shirts, still available as well as we enter another hurricane season, probably without it. So in the Scilly range, we are looking at the Atlantic for that little system in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, it does its best in the initial phase, and then it really struggles as it moves on towards Texas. Very weak landfall there, not even a tropical cyclone by that point. Then there's another system off the northern Bahamas that forms after that, and then another weak low pressure system further out to sea in the Sargasso Sea over there. So watch all of that, and you can see 3 potential cyclones, but they are all extremely weak, and this is the Scilly range, so I wouldn't put any faith into any of this yet. June 2nd, 1988, we had a fascinating typhoon. It was Typhoon Susan, which struck the southern Taiwan as it was recurving northeastwards on this day. And it was a strong Category 1 when it made landfall. It emerged as a much weaker Category 1 storm, and it was about to lose its status as it continued northeastwards. Also, you'll be raising eyebrows as to why it says 13L in the Atlantic. Well, it was a depression that was tagged after the fact. So the season had 12 depressions, and they labelled this one number 13 because they went back and tagged it after the season had finished. So that was a depression moving through Cuba. Well, back to today then, we are code blue for Ewiniar, would you believe, and its effects in Alaska and in Canada. Well, in the Atlantic then, the first name this season is going to be Alberto. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Aletta, and in the Central Pacific, it is still Hone. In the Western Pacific, the next name is now Gaemi. In the North Indian Ocean, it will be Asna. We're at 20 storms so far for this year, but I've got to tell you, we are still 35% below average for this time of year in terms of accumulated cyclone energy, so we've got a lot of catching up to do. Next name in the Australian region is Robin. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, if it's this month, it's Jeremy before they roll over to a new naming list, and in the South Pacific, it's Pitta. That's all from today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow.
Become an ultimate fan today.